right, welcome to Positive Parenting with Astrology with your resident Gemini and astrologer Maria Riegger. Today we're talking about a very exciting time this month of October 2021. Several of the planets that have been in retrograde the past several months are now stationing direct in the month of October. This is a very exciting time. There's going to be a lot of forward momentum and progress. So we're finally going to be able to get things done after the several months long retrograde period. Before we get into it, please like this channel, hit that bell to subscribe for your regular weekly Positive Parenting with Astrology content. Also, if you would like to be on my mailing list, the link is below in the video description. I share much more detailed information about the current planetary transits, including new moon and full moon cycles with the subscribers on my mailing list. I'm also now on Patreon, have a Patreon page, very exciting. That link is also below in the video description. My Patreon subscribers will get my next parenting book completely free, and you'll get a bunch of other benefits along with free written content and free regular AMAs and things like that. So it's been a few weeks since I posted a video. There are a couple big reasons for that. One is we spent some time in Spain visiting my family, which was fantastic. Shortly before our trip to Spain, we had a really bad kitchen leak in the house. So there was some water damage to the office where I usually record. So if you are not recognizing the background behind me, it's because I'm in another part of the house. So however, I have a bunch of new content I'm planning over the next couple of weeks for you guys. Very exciting. So I plan on picking up my regular weekly videos starting this week. So today we're going to talk about Pluto stationing direct, Saturn stationing direct, Jupiter stationing direct later this month, and around October 18th, Mercury will also be stationing direct. We are currently in the last Mercury retrograde cycle of 2021. So when Mercury stations direct around October 18th, we're going to be feeling a lot of forward momentum. So first of all, what does it mean when the planet is in retrograde motion? Well, the planet is appearing to travel backwards, okay, when it's in retrograde. So the energy, when a planet is in retrograde, the energy of that planet is directed inward. So for example, Pluto had been retrograding the past 6 months or so, and on October 6th, finally stationed direct. This is a big deal because Pluto as the ruler of Scorpio, represents your unconscious, your subconscious, kind of how you act subconsciously without thinking about it. Pluto can also represent your emotional triggers from childhood, anything that has to do with your deep psyche, your deep unconscious. A lot of times it represents kind of that shadow portion of ourselves. It's not necessarily a bad or negative thing. Those things that we have repressed for one reason or another, whether we were conditioned to repress those tendencies as children or for another reason, we have not honored that part of ourselves. And Pluto can also represent that kind of shadow part of ourselves. So partly your journey where Pluto is concerned is about kind of learning about all the parts of yourselves, including those parts that you have repressed, so such that you have not lived a totally authentic life. And the point is to bring, to recognize, acknowledge those parts of yourself, to then bring those out and honor those things about yourself. Okay, so these past several months with Pluto in retrograde, I expect if we've been doing it right, that we've been thinking about how we show up in relationships. Pluto has a lot to do with relationships too. Remember, Scorpio is the sign ruled by Pluto is a relationship-oriented sign. So especially how our emotional triggers and childhood triggers show up in relationships and things like that, how we maybe subconsciously act in relationships. So with Pluto going direct, we can put all those things in practice. And one kind of good example of that, if you've been thinking about how you behave in your relationships with your partner, with your children, you can have a talk with your partner and with your children if they're old enough and tell them, for example, I've been doing a lot of thinking about how I act about X, or how I reacted with you when this happened, or how I handle these types of situations. And I've come to the conclusion that I overreacted, or I didn't handle this the right way, or I could be better about this, or I could act with more empathy, come more from a place of empathy and love instead of criticism, and I'm going to do better about that. Just the act of communicating that, it allows you to be vulnerable with your partner and your kids. It also shows the other person that you are aware of your flaws, your triggers, and you are working on them, that you want to work on them. And that goes a long way towards strengthening relationships. And it's okay to apologize to our children, to say those things to our children. Hey, I messed up. I overreacted. I'm sorry. I've apologized a lot to my kid. And I think that that actually brings us closer because he realizes that I know I am flawed and that I am working on those things. So Pluto going direct is a big development. So you can expect a lot of kind of forward movement, progression, development in relationships, and it all should be good. Pluto also deals with transformation. It also deals with kind of letting go of old patterns and triggers like we talked about, and letting go of those that could be relationships, it could be other things in your life that no longer serve you, or that are holdovers from the person you used to be, but you're not anymore, because Pluto is all about rebirth and transformation. So you may be letting go of old patterns in relationships. That's been a big development of mine over the past few years, working through and letting go of these old triggers I had from childhood, or other things. So those are the things you want to be thinking about. The other big transit is Saturn, actually on October 10th, so a couple of days ago, because we're recording on October 12th today. On October 10th, Saturn also stationed direct. Now, Saturn is the workhorse planet. It's the planet that's going to compel you to be productive. It's about productivity, work, getting the job done, doing the things you know you need to do in order to advance and be fulfilled in your life. It also has to do with structure and limits. Now, limits are not necessarily a bad thing, because what happens in kind of the overall cycle is Uranus, the planet that kind of radically changes or even destroys old structures. And Pluto can be involved in that decay and destruction of old structures too. And then from those pieces of the old structures, you use the Saturnian energy to rebuild things. And sometimes you see all these options and choices, potential choices you have, and Saturn works to limit those choices. This is not necessarily a bad thing, because when you have the limiting power and structure of Saturn, you have a clear idea of where to direct your energy. When we're scattered, trust me, I know what it's like to be scattered. I'm a Gemini. When you're scattered, sometimes our energy is so scattered, we're not able to focus on any one thing and not able to be productive and move forward in any one area of life or one project. But with the energy of Saturn, you can use that to your advantage, because when Saturn limits your options, you have a better idea of where and how to direct your energy. So it's overall a good process. The past few months when Saturn was in retrograde, you may have felt something akin to writer's block, like you had difficulty and challenges completing those projects that you wanted to complete, that you knew you had to complete. And for me, with my writing, I have a lot of half-finished manuscripts, and I just had a hard time finishing any one thing. So that Saturn retrograde period is a better time to kind of plan out the tasks and work that you know you want to do and you want to get done, but not actually do them and complete them yet. So you plan them out. You may plan out how you're going to go about things, outlining things, maybe gathering together content or gathering data or information. And when Saturn goes direct, then now is the time to actually accomplish those projects and those tasks. And as Saturn is going direct in its home sign of Capricorn. Saturn rules Capricorn. That's a very comfortable placement, and it is a placement that gives you power and supports you in being productive and accomplishing the goals and tasks and projects, overall missions that you want. Now, very shortly, Saturn is going to go, as it progresses through the zodiac, move back into Aquarius. Saturn was in Aquarius when it went retrograde earlier, several months ago, and now it's stationing direct in Capricorn and will shortly progress to Aquarius. Now, Saturn in Aquarius is, as we have said before, a fairly comfortable placement, because in traditional astrology, Aquarius was co-ruled by Saturn and Uranus. So this is still a comfortable placement, and you can expect a lot of a lot of thinking along the lines of what you can contribute productively to society. Because remember, Aquarius is the sign of kind of society, community in general, how we fit into the larger community. And one thing I want to mention with that is with Aquarian people and Uranian people, and the overall Saturn being in Aquarius, and we're in the age of Aquarius, so we have a lot of Aquarian energy right now. So a lot of people are thinking about how they can fit into society and what their place in society is. Now, as a rugged individualist myself, I would feel negligent if I did not caution you to always remain true to yourselves when you are contemplating how to fit into society and what your role in society is. Never lose sight of who you are, what is important to you, and your values and ideologies as an individual, okay? Because the current energy climate is very much one of community. What can I contribute? Things like that. Do not ever lose sight of who you are as a person, what is important to you, and your one-on-one relationships. That's kind of a big caveat I want to make with all this Aquarian energy that's taking place. Okay, and the last big transit I want to talk about before we touch on Mercury going direct is Jupiter. Jupiter will go direct on October 18th, approximately the same day as the day that Mercury goes direct. Jupiter is the ruler of Sagittarius. It is the planet of expansion, abundance, higher consciousness, higher learning. It is generally regarded as a benefic or very positive planet, positive energy planet. And for the most part, it is. The kind of the dark side of Jupiter is you can tend to overindulgence, overabundance, things like that. Too much of a good thing, which is also possible. But generally, Jupiter going direct, very good thing. With Jupiter and Saturn being direct together later this month in October, we can expect a lot of people feeling the need and desire to work together to fix things. You'll also be thinking about, as we've said, how you can contribute, what you can contribute to society as a whole. This is generally very positive energy, though. So you may feel that now is the time to engage in higher learning. You may sign up for some classes that you've been thinking about taking these past few months. This is a good time to engage in any higher learning classes, certificate programs that you want. A lot of people are in the middle of changing jobs or considering changing jobs. This is a good time to actually take steps. With all these planets going direct, the next couple of months is a good time to take steps toward changing jobs or changing careers, or at least kind of beefing up your resume and taking any classes or enhancing your education so that then you can move to the next step in your career path. Now, the last big thing I want to talk about is Mercury will be going direct, as we said, on around October 18th. So Mercury's been in its last retrograde of the year, the past few weeks. It's been retrograding in the sign of Libra, the sign of one-on-one relationships. And if you have not seen it already, go check out the video that I did with my friend Dominique, who's another astrologer and parenting expert, the video that we did on this particular Mercury retrograde, where we go into all this in detail, what it means for relationships, for parent-child relationships, all these things. It's a very powerful retrograde. Relationships are definitely at the forefront of this Mercury retrograde and this kind of cycle, end of the year cycle. Not only reevaluating relationships, but reevaluating how you show up in relationships. Okay, so we have a lot of Cardinal Air Energy currently this past kind of month and a half. So the Cardinal energy compels us to move forward and advance, but the air energy can make us feel a little bit scattered and also makes us a little bit detached. So when you're interacting with your kids and your partner, always make sure that you're coming, like we always say, that you're coming from a place, you're communicating from a place of love, compassion, empathy, understanding, more so than criticism or correction. But once Mercury goes direct, you'll feel more comfortable actually taking action and getting things done, especially with all these other planets coming to support this feeling, right? This sense of, okay, now is the time to actually get things done and take action. So anyway, in short, the next couple of months is an excellent time to use this forward momentum to get things done. Think about the main projects that you want to accomplish, whether it's finishing a book or something with your kids or travel or changing careers or signing up for more classes, educational classes, this is the time to take action. Okay, now that so many of the planets are coming direct again. Uranus is still retrograding. I know what that feels like. I was born under Uranus retrograde, so that energy is always internally focused for me. So I weather Uranus retrogrades pretty well. My partner was born under a Mercury retrograde. He weathers Mercury retrograde periods way better than I do, because I'm a Gemini that always hits me hard. But generally, this is very positive energy going forward. I'll always, think about, as we always say, think about prioritize connection in your relationships over criticism, over correction. Okay, we still, even though Mercury was retrograding, because it was retrograding in Libra, you're still going to have a feeling of wanting to be relationship oriented and work in the relationship, work for the relationship, and work through the relationship. That includes working through any issues you've been having. And Pluto, having been retrograded for several months, now being direct, will support you in that and releasing all the subconscious ways that you may have been sabotaging yourself, not only in relationships, but in life in general. So thank you for listening. That's all for today. We're going to have another video coming up very shortly. I have a lot of great content, including some guests for you guys. As always, if you have questions, please leave a comment below. You can email me at maria@lawschoolheretic.com. I want to leave you with one thing. My son, my 11-year-old, he was kind enough to use his own money to buy me a ring light for my camera for podcasting and YouTubing. I am recording on my phone right now because, I said, the office is inaccessible because we had a leak. So that was something really sweet that he did for me. As you know, he's a Scorpio, and he is very loyal, as are all Scorpios. They are very loyal to their people. So anyway, thank you for listening, and we'll see you soon. Take care.